There's an invisible force in your life that's dictating right now the quality of your work and even your ability to relax. And no, it's not your motivation, it's not your discipline, it's the silent architect of your life, your environment. Today, we are going to pull back the curtain and analyze how it's secretly controlling you, and more importantly, how you can finally start to control it. So let's just start with the question that I think everybody feels like deep in their bones. Why is it so unbelievably hard to just sit down and focus? You know what you need to do. You want to do it. But when the moment comes, there's just this wall, this resistance. What is that? And here it is. This is probably the most important thing you're going to hear today. That resistance you feel, it is not a moral failing. It's not some deep character flaw. You are not lazy. The system you are operating inside of, your own room, your desk, it's poorly designed. The problem isn't the person, it's the design. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll diagnose the problem, what I call the zombie in the room. Then we're going to calculate the invisible price you're paying by fighting a ghost. After that, we get to the good stuff, the architect's toolkit. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with a new way of thinking, the pilot's mindset. All right, part one, let's get into the diagnosis. What is this hidden battle that's happening right under our noses, in the very places we think of as our safe havens? Well, the core problem actually has a name. It's called spatial contamination. It's what happens when one single space is used for totally conflicting activities. I mean, think about your bed. That's where you sleep. But maybe it's also where you scroll Instagram, where you answer stressful work emails. Or your desk, that's for work. But it's also where you game and eat and watch movies. You're just sending this storm of mixed signals to your brain, and it creates this constant nagging confusion. This right here perfectly explains it. Let's take the classic example, the gamer who can't study. When you game at your desk, you build this powerful neurological anchor. Your brain learns this chair, this screen, this is the dopamine place. This is the fun place. Then you try to sit in that exact same spot to study. Your conscious mind is saying, okay, time for calculus, but your subconscious brain is literally screaming, where's the game? This is the game spot. That internal tug of war you feel, that's cognitive friction. That's the battle. And you know what? This isn't some niche little problem. This is the default setting for modern life. We've basically collapsed our entire existence into one tiny contaminated space. We live in zombie mode, just drifting between sleeping, eating, scrolling, and working, all within a few feet of each other. And then we wonder why we feel so exhausted and foggy. It's because our environment is giving our brain constant whiplash. And this has a cost, a real, measurable, and deeply frustrating cost. And before we even think about solutions, we have to really sit with the pain of this problem for a minute. We have to understand the damage that's being done, because you're not just fighting the task in front of you. You're fighting a ghost. Okay, look at this. Think of your willpower like a battery on your phone. You wake up in the morning with a full 100% charge. But if you're in one of these poorly designed, contaminated environments, before you even open your laptop, boom, almost 40% of that battery is just gone. It's been burned up by that invisible internal battle, that cognitive friction of just trying to convince your brain that, yes, this is work time now. You are starting your most important work of the day with half a tank. No wonder it feels impossible. So this is the key insight right here. When you're procrastinating, when you feel that crushing resistance, you are not fighting the work. You are fighting the ghost of every single YouTube video you watched in that chair. The ghost of every Netflix binge, every argument you had over text, every past habit is haunting that space. That's the real enemy. Okay, so that's the diagnosis and that's the damage. And I know, it sounds kind of bleak, but here's the beautiful part. If the problem is design, then the solution is also design. We stop trying to brute force the problem with willpower, and we start to outsmart it with engineering. Welcome to the architect's toolkit. Let's start with the biggest, baddest, most controversial tool in the box. The single greatest source of contamination in our world is this little glowing rectangle in our pocket. And the only solution that actually works isn't trying to ignore it. It's absolute physical separation. Your phone has to go to jail. And this is where the 20-second rule comes in. It's so critical. The psychology is dead simple. Your brain is lazy. It won't put up with significant inconvenience for a quick little dopamine hit. So if getting your phone means you have to physically get up, walk into another room, maybe even unlock a box, if that whole process takes more than 20 seconds, the impulse to check it will just die. But if it's right there on the desk next to you, you've already lost.
Now I can hear you thinking it. The second I say put your phone in another room, that little voice in your head, the devil's advocate, pipes up and says, yeah, but what if there's an emergency? What if my family needs me? What if work calls with something urgent? And look, it sounds like a totally reasonable objection.
And here's the response from what we'll call the dark minimalist. It's brutal, but it's also incredibly liberating. Ready? You are not that important. Seriously, for the 90-minute deep work session you have scheduled, the world is going to be just fine without you. A true life or death emergency will find a way to get to you that doesn't involve a Slack message. This isn't about being irresponsible, it's about being ruthless with what actually matters. And right now, the work matters.
Okay, so we've jailed the digital demon. Now let's talk about the hardware of your room itself. We're moving from digital engineering to biological engineering. See, most of us think of light as just decoration. That is a huge mistake. Light is not decoration. Light is a drug. It is a biological switch that directly controls the hormones that govern your focus.
So here's the protocol. It's super simple. During your work hours, let's say 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., your workspace needs to be flooded with bright, cold, blue-toned light. Think midday sun. This tells your brain, produce cortisol, be alert. Then, when your workday is done, you switch. Everything goes to very warm, red ambient. Think campfire. This tells your brain, produce melatonin, it's time to rest. Trying to work under cozy, warm lighting is like trying to run a marathon after taking a sleeping pill. You're working against your own biology. All right. This last tool, I'm going to be honest, it's going to sound a little weird, but trust me on this. The psychology behind it is incredibly powerful. We need to create a uniform for deep work. Because when you work in the same comfy sweatpants that you relax in, your brain gets, you guessed it, another one of those mixed signals. Here's the ritual. It's simple. You pick an item of clothing you would never normally wear, just chilling around the house. The best example, and I know it's crazy, is shoes. Putting on shoes to work inside your own home creates this incredibly strong psychological trigger. Or maybe it's a specific watch or a certain hat. The rules are you put it on only when you start deep work, and you take it off the second you're done. You're creating a little costume change for your brain that says loud and clear, okay, we are in professional mode, let's go.
So we have our toolkit, we have the phone jail, the Neuro-Lighting, the uniform. But tools are useless without the right philosophy, the right mindset to use them. This last part is about making a fundamental identity shift, from being a passive victim of your environment to becoming its active, intentional architect. This is the pilot's mindset. I want you to burn this metaphor into your brain. You are not just some passenger along for the ride. You are the pilot of a high-performance jet, your own mind. And that means your room, your workspace, is the cockpit. A real pilot would never tolerate a messy, confusing, or cozy cockpit. Every single switch, every dial, every light has a specific function. It is a space engineered for one thing and one thing only: peak performance. Your space needs to be the same. And this becomes the new mantra. We are done decorating. We are now engineering. From this point forward, every single object on your desk either helps you accomplish your mission or it is a liability that needs to be removed. There is no middle ground. Which brings us to the final, most important takeaway of all. Stop blaming your willpower. Stop waiting around for motivation to strike. Those things are fickle, they're fleeting, they're emotions. Instead, focus all of your energy on the one thing you can actually control, the one thing that's real and permanent, the design of your environment. Because willpower is a myth, design is reality.